Welcome to episode 2 of the yet to be named Team Dirt and Vert podcast, Squadcast, Tales from the Trail. We're throwing some things out. We never introduced ourselves last time, so I'm Greg Sissengrath, and this is, and you are?
I'm Jen Kirkpatrick.
And today we have our special guest, Crystal. Oh, wait, you changed your name. It says Elaine Vallie. And we're gonna have her talk about her recent race at Rocky Raccoon. But before we go into that, we're gonna switch gears a little bit and talk about some upcoming races this weekend, because Jen has a race.
I have a race
in Arkansas, the Levitt 100K. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it is because it is this weekend. It's a pretty fun race, pretty tough Arkansas trails in the Ouachita Mountains, and we're gonna get some inclement weather. We're recording this on a Wednesday, and in Dallas, Dallas is frozen over, and in Arkansas, it's frozen.
Arkansas is clear at the moment.
Yeah.
I think
they're getting some rain.
I think it's about to be frozen.
Yeah, we're getting some inclement weather and some cold rain. And I'll let Jen talk about this more. But the reason why I wanted to touch on Levitt is because originally Jen was going to do the 100-mile, and this is not a goal race for her. She has a bigger race down the road, so this was a tune-up race. So I wanted to have Jen talk about, how to schedule tune-up races, what are tune-up races, taper and recovery going in, and then like switching gears where she's not doing the full distance that she intended previously, how she came about that decision, and things like that. So I'll hand it off to Jen.
Okay, so I signed up for Levitt 100 mile when I was on a high after Grindstone. And I try not to ever do that. I mean, I even waited a few weeks, but I don't know. It's like one morning it just popped into my head. I think maybe Kelly had told me that she was doing it, Kelly Mims. And then I was like, well, why not? And like literally within 30 minutes, I had registered. And then, so that was pretty stupid. Like you really shouldn't just do those knee-jerk registrations. You have to think about it just a little bit. But I mean, originally I was thinking like Bighorn is the A race, that's in June. And so I was like, okay, well, that's 4 months. And so, you can recover and have a nice build back to your Bighorn. It's going to give me some good climbing to practice for Bighorn. But life has just been really hard to maintain the volume that I like, and I really don't run that much, but I still haven't been able to run like a normal build for 100. So a couple of weeks ago, I really felt I had a lot of anxiety about the race. And I mean, honestly, I could, with the cutoff that we have out there, I could have done it. Like, I know I could have done it. It would not have been racing. So I gave that some thought about just gutting out 100. And then I was like, this is just a race to prep for Bighorn. And there's really no reason to run a 100-mile race to prepare for a 100-mile race. And really 100K is kind of pushing it, honestly. But again, we're far enough out where I feel like I have enough time where I can just because I'll take a couple of weeks and just, let my body recover. People talk about recovery and they're like, my legs feel just fine. Well, yeah, your legs feel fine, but your body is freaking tired. Like your endocrine system takes a hit. And, so a 30-hour race compared to like a 15 or 16-hour race, that's a big difference in the hit on the endocrine system. So the recovery won't, I won't be carrying as much fatigue as I would have, honestly. But those are the main reasons. Like I just had to remind myself that to put my ego in the back seat and treat this as a as a training race, and then I'm also reminding myself that it's just to get time on my feet. And obviously, anytime you race, you want to do your best. But I'm honestly not going to go out there I'm not going to go out there with the goal of where I place. Like I usually in a 100 miler, I want to come in like, top 10% or top 10 female or whatever it is. I'm really not going to have any goals like that going into this. So,
Yep. Well, I think that talks to some of the struggles, or this, I guess not struggle, but stubbornness of I guess some of the newer ultra runners, where you get on a high and you feel like, oh man, I have to do, what's the longest distance at this race? I'm going to do the longest distance because now I identify as an ultra runner, and we do 100-mile races to train for other 100-mile races. And I think it is hard to turn off the ego and think about, why am I doing this race? It is a training race. You'll get all the training benefit, and actually more more than you need
yeah.
out of it. So it is very difficult to change, flip that script and drop down, because now you don't, because you understand. But I think a lot of times you're like, oh, I feel like a failure, I'm not doing the longest distance, or I had to drop down. I think you, as a veteran, you've learned a lot.
Yeah.
So
well, and honestly, the goal is longevity, right? And I want to arrive at Bighorn, and I don't want to be completely trashed from this first 6 months of the year. And there's a lot of stress right now in my life. I've got my mother-in-law living with me while Bobby builds her house.
Follow Jen on Twitter for all that.
Yeah. And it's just, that's a stress in itself. And then it's Allie's volleyball is always stressful, but it's more stressful this year because this is the recruiting year. And so there's just, there's a lot of stress coming from all angles, and stress is stress. Whether stress comes from training or stress comes from life, your body doesn't interpret stress it interprets the stress as stress. It doesn't differentiate where it came from. And so, I just had to sit long and hard and think about that, and just realize that honestly, the 100K is more than enough, and it'll be fun.
Yep.
And I'll get the climbing that I'm looking for regardless. So, yeah.
And Elaine, you had to deal, and full transparency, I am Elaine's coach, so I do know a little bit more about her training, apart from just a spectator. But you did have some of that, work stress bleeding over into your training stress during your lead up to your goal race. So tell us how you how you dealt with that, and some of the things that we had to do differently.
I had to learn priorities, because I love my job and I put everything into my job. But when you have to have a life outside of your job as well. And when you have to decide what's your priority with this. And sometimes you have to set boundaries, and you can't let your job have every ounce of you. But then you can't have your training have every ounce of you. You have to have your life balance, your children, and your job, and your fun outside of that. It all has to have a balance. And that's one big thing that I've learned working with you and being with Team Vert, and this whole training is having a balance in my life, being more consistent, and setting those boundaries with work as well.
Good. Okay. Well, I think we'll go ahead and jump in to and just focus on you, Elaine. Just to recap, you just finished your first 50 miler at Rocky Raccoon. It went awesome. I think I'll let you do more of the background, but you had an attempt there at Rocky as well, your first 50-mile attempt a few years back. Looking at your ultra sign up, I think it looks like you took a break from trails around 2019. and you came back with a vengeance in 2021, and obviously at the start of 2022. So kind of maybe talk about your journey as a runner, some of the challenges maybe in 2019, and how how this year went.
Well, I started running in 2000. So this is like 22 years for me. And, we started on the road. We were road runners. And then I kind of ventured over to trails. And 5 years ago is when all my friends were doing Rocky 100. They were doing Rocky. And I was like, hey, I could do that too. So I went out and did Rocky, and I finished the 50K, and I timed out. I missed it, cut off by 30 minutes, but I came in and finished the 50K. And that was around 2017. And 2019, I took off because I was finishing my doctorate and I needed to focus solely on getting that done. And so I just pretty much took off from running completely. In 2020, COVID hit. And so, of course, I wasn't running anything that year. And I decided to focus on my health. And I knew I would be back at Rocky again for redemption, but I knew that there was some serious things I need to do for my health. One of the biggest goals was to lose weight so that I could set myself up for success. I was having a serious conversation with myself, and I knew that, and I know, Jen, you agree with me, is ultra runners, we cannot be dieting at the same time that we are trying to have our body reach these huge goals. And I knew that. And so I decided to put my pride aside and say, I'm not going to be running these races and running this mileage if I'm going to be focusing on my health and weight. And so I dropped 80 pounds in preparation for when I decided to join a coach, so that I could start training. And because I knew when I throw myself into that, I was going to need to be doing more strength training, more of everything. And I'm going to have to start consuming a lot more calories than I was, that I was limiting myself. And so that's when I decided the goal was, when I hit that 80-pound mark, something in my brain was like, that's when I was going to reach out to you. And that's when I reached out to you that summer. I started training with Team Dirt and Vert because I suffered from a lot of confidence issues. We talked about that in the beginning of being out on the trails, tripping on the trails. I didn't have a lot of core strength to be able to hold myself up. My ankles, my feet are bad. And so we did a lot of work with that when I first signed on with you. And running with Team Dirt and Vert is getting more confidence while I was running the trails.
You shouldn't be self-conscious about tripping at all if you're running around me.
Right.
Yeah. Jen's falls are always worse than anybody else's.
Yeah.
Well, and I knew that I was setting myself up for success, being a lot lighter on my feet. And then when we started, I knew I had Rocky in my sights. I was going to go back to that race because I needed redemption.
Yep.
I knew the funny thing is that this race didn't seem at all the same as the one I ran 5 years ago. Honestly, it was completely different. I was trying to compare the two, and the one 5 years ago, I had a horrible experience. I didn't like being out there. I just know that I wasn't having fun, and this one was completely different. I had a blast out there. I think it's because of the training. I knew that I was prepared, and I was ready for anything.
When ultra races are difficult, and you're not going to have fun the whole time. But we also remember we're doing this for fun. None of us are professionals. We're not getting paid, and you should remember that the main goal is that we are having fun. So a lot of that, the preparation really helps with how much fun you're having and how much struggle you're not having. So I'm sure that's definitely. And remember, this course now is probably harder than it was 5 years ago. There's just a tad bit more vert with the way they've laid it out. So the fact that you felt stronger now is a testament to the work that you put in. So let's see, talk about some of the, during 2021, we had a lot of big. This goes back to tune-up races. The 13 milers, the trail 13 milers, the 25Ks. The last race before Rocky was a 54K. So talk about, the build up in distances, some of the milestones, like, I don't want to, this is a trail running podcast, but you had a really great race at Dallas.
I did.
At Dallas Marathon, and so talk about some of the the milestones that you set during those tune-up races.
I think we did a really great job picking the races leading up to. Like I said, I dealt with a lot of confidence issues on the trail, so we started with 6:0. We did Lake Murray, 25K. We did Paris Pear, and Paris Pear was a great tune-up to know if I was ready for the B race, which was Dallas Marathon. And I was hoping that I would, as I was getting faster, these races were letting me know that I was getting faster on the trails. So Paris Pear 25K allowed me. It told me that I was getting faster and ready for Dallas Marathon. So I was getting more excited for Dallas Marathon. I was building confidence. And then Dino Valley was a huge race that when I did the 25K at that race, I came in hot after that first loop. And then when I came in on the second, I was just blazing through. And I was like Jen said, you're on a high and you're like, what do I do to do next? I was very confident in what I was doing out there at Dino Valley. And that was leading up to, then we had Dallas Marathon. I PR'd my marathon time I PR'd that course, pretty big PR. And that just set my confidence really high, that I knew what we were doing was working. All the strength, all the weighted vests, all the core work, everything was really making me a lot stronger and getting me ready. And then, of course, the Running the Rose probably was one of the hardest races I've ever done, besides Possum's Revenge that I've done a while back. But Running the Rose really set me up for success, because Running the Rose was 3 loops, 11 miles apiece. I knew that Rocky was going to be right after that, I found out it was going to be 16.7 miles of 3 loops apiece. And so it was mirroring what was about to happen. And so what happened at Running the Rose, I just tried to emulate that, because I had a really successful race at Running the Rose as well. And I just tried to do the same thing over at Rocky. And most of the things I did the same thing. And that's why I feel like I had such a successful race at Rocky as well.
Well, and a lot of those races that you did, like when you're talking about tune-up races, I know Dallas was a little bit different, but like Dino and Running the Rose for sure. I mean, Dino's a little bit rockier than Rocky Raccoon, but it's still, you're getting a good amount of rolling hills in there. And then same with Tyler. Tyler was probably more vert per mile than you got at Rocky. So that was a really good test. And just like choosing races that will prepare you for what you're going to see in your A race is important. I mean, running a flat race like down at the beach is not going to help you if you're planning on a mountain race. So those were good choices.
And Running the Rose was very helpful, because I never really used my trekking poles for a race yet. And so I was trying out all my gear at these races that I was building up to it. So I'd use my trekking poles like out at, the Tuesday night run, but it wasn't the same as you going up that hill in Tyler State Park. And so I was really, I was using it on that third loop. And that's when I realized that it was something really to look forward to on the third loop, was to have your trekking poles ready for you on that third loop. Yeah. And it was almost like a third race to look forward to.
Yeah.
Tell us about let's talk just specifically Rocky. So you know, we had to talk about your crew, your pacers, just you know, let's do a play by play of the race, the loops, you know, talk about challenge, you know, what went awesome, challenges that popped up, you know. Let's go all into it.
And I know I'm going to seem crazy, but I had such a fun time. I mean, I really did. I picked a great crew. I had a crew chief. Eric was my crew chief. You can't get a better crew chief than that. He's so positive. Y'all were there. Thank you for being there. And I knew I needed a pacer for that last loop. And I'd run with Fiona at Maxwell Creek, and she would give such nuggets of information during these runs that I would just listen, and she's like, okay, you're going too fast, you're tripping a lot. And so I would hear her voice. I said, I got to have her at Rocky. So I asked her and she said yes. So I was super excited on that third loop, knowing my pacer, knowing how she works. She's tough but loving at the same time, and I knew that I was set up for success. That's the biggest thing, is being set up for success. The one thing I wasn't prepared for was the weather. The week before, James and I kind of shot ourselves in the foot because we kept saying, sorry, you know, Rocky 100 people, it's like freezing out here, but next week we're going to have this awesome weather. And as we got closer and closer, it was going to be raining on our day. So, you know, I do a lot of visualization techniques and I just imagined the worst case scenario, the best case scenario. And, you know, coming from a road background, you don't have all these changes of clothes that you can bring and you just wear the same thing. But so I had 3 changes. I imagined each loop being a different race, because that's kind of how Possums was when I was caught in a storm, and then it was hot the afternoon. And I really went back to all the races that I've done in the past, all the horrible races that I've gotten caught, you know, with tornadoes around us and like hailstorms, and I was ready for anything that it was going to throw my way. So that morning, it was kind of real humid down in Huntsville. Yeah. And I was really worried about the heat. I had a jacket on, I had my waist lamp, and I dropped that at Nature Center, and I just had a very light short sleeve and a shorts going into the first loop, and no music. I just focused on hitting that cutoff, which was, you know, the goal for the first loop. Came in, I think the goal was 4 hours, and I came in like at 4:08 for that first loop, and I was in t-shirts and shorts. But I knew the weather was coming in. It was starting to mist. And so I switched gear. I put more layers on the top. I kept my shorts, and then went out. They loaded me up with all the food. I had the 3 bags. I had loop 1, loop 2, loop 3 filled with food. And so all the food, I just took as much as I was hungry for at the time and just shoved it all in my pack and just took off and was eating on the way. I wasn't going to stick around for very long. Second loop starts raining. But I prepared myself for, don't shy away from the rain. You're gonna get rained on. But luckily the trees were catching it, because it might have been coming sideways or something, because I didn't get wet almost at all until it was in the open areas. But it started getting really cold. Somewhere along the way, my gloves got put in a jacket or somewhere, and I couldn't find them. So when I was so happy to be able to get some gloves, my hands were the ones that were the coldest. So it got really cold. When I was coming off that second loop over the dam, the wind was just whipping my face, and it was the water, you know, it's just so cold. And luckily the gloves did a lot for my hands on that one.
That's the coldest stretch.
It was so cold, but fought through it. I knew the last 5 miles, I was already planning on what am I gonna get at the next when I get back to home base. Get the clothes out. Here's my 3 things I'm gonna make sure to get. I kept saying them back over and over to myself. So when I came in there, Fiona's like, what do you need? Here's the food. Okay, food, bam, 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 clothes, bam, bam, bam. This is what I need. And then I put it all on. I threw a big old jacket over it, had my bagel in one hand and my everything with the other. And then I just took off for that third loop. And I knew I would have about 6 miles until I got to see Fiona at Nature Center. And then Fiona and I went for the last 11 miles together. And it was chilly, but with the gloves, I was fine. I put on tights, and the tights, thank goodness I put on the tights, because it was getting cold, especially first goal was to beat sundown, is to get there in the light. When that didn't happen, the next goal was to get there before, at least an hour before the final race was over, and we did that. So mission accomplished.
Have you ever had a pacer before?
No.
You didn't have a pacer.
I've never had a pacer before. This is my first time, so I was
life-changing.
Everything was I just feel like a newbie. Like everything is just so exciting for me. I was having so much fun out there, and her and I, we were having a lot of fun with the ABC game.
Yeah.
And we were cracking a lot of jokes on you, Greg. And
Great.
It was so much fun. It was funny.
We'll talk about that offline. We'll need to put that on YouTube.
It's good to know your pacer. It's good to trust your pacer. And whatever she said, I said, okay, you need to hurry up a little bit. You need to do this. Okay. She's like, here, take this shot of pickle. Okay. Whatever you want me to do, I've got it. I trust her. I'm doing whatever she told me to do. I really learned that I love ramen noodles and mashed potatoes put together. I mean, that's a power winning duo.
It's very important to find a good pacer. I think someone had asked recently if I thought it was necessary to have a pacer for your first 100 or so. Was, it's not necessary, but it could change your race. You don't get you don't get a different buckle for finishing solo. And especially when it's your first, you can make a lot of mistakes when you're fatigued and sleep deprived. And this can happen in a 50 miler too. And having someone, over your shoulder telling you that, hey, you need this, or reminding you, hey, have you drank? When's the last time you peed? And just someone to distract you from, if you're in your own head, just thinking how bad you hurt. that totally changes the mindset. But also not just a friend, but someone that knows you, but someone that's also experienced exactly what you're going through, so they can impart some of their own experience that they've had. Fiona's done 3 100s plus ultras, and she's paced a lot. She paced the week right before your race very successfully. So I think I went maybe 4 ultras or 400s before Fiona let me go solo, and that was just because we were going to Wyoming, and I just couldn't afford to fly anybody else out there. So but yeah, I would always recommend having a pacer. And the other part is people want to be involved. They want to share. Go ahead, Jen.
That's you make memories out there with your pacers, right? With your pacers and your crew, but mostly with your pacers, because that's where the real shit goes down, right? And also for me, like, I delay the pansy status for quite a while, because when you pick up a pacer, you don't want them to know. Like, it takes a while for you to break down enough that you care for them to see that you're just in a really crappy point. And so I usually, that's always good for me. But like, when people have asked me, like, should they have a pacer or not? What are your goals? Like, is your A goal just to finish, or do you have a time goal? Because if you have a time goal, then you probably need a pacer and crew for sure. Because you'll tend to waste a whole lot more time if you don't have somebody there that's just kind of, noting, like, keeping you going and making sure you don't spend too much time in the aid stations. And something that you said, Elaine, I want to go back to, is how you're talking about the things that you wanted when you got to see your crew. That is important, because if you're waiting until you roll in there to think about, and you just start thinking about it, then you're wasting time, number one. But I mean, even doing that at aid stations, like knowing before you get to an aid station, I'm going to need to fill my bottle. I'd rather have PB&J, or I'm looking for something salty. Like, know what you're looking for, get it done, grab it. You can walk and eat, but you're still walking is moving, and standing at the aid station, time's just ticking away. And those are precious minutes that just add up.
Yeah, I do want to go back to something you'd also mentioned about the weather, because it's going to be relevant this weekend. So I'll let Jen talk about. So what are the concerns? What do you have to take into account when you are racing? When the weather is going to be in the 20s and 30s. It's already, after several hours into a race, even when it's 50 degrees and you're racing, that feels pretty chilly. So it would feel perfect, if we were just running a training run. But when you're several hours into a race, it's hard. It's hard to keep the body warm. You're asking a lot. You're wanting it to move, but you want it to keep you warm, and also you're wanting to eat and continue fueling. So what kind of considerations do you have to take in when you're racing in colder weather?
First of all, you kind of need to know how hot you run. I feel like I run kind of hot. So but I hate being cold. So every time it's cold, I overdress because I don't want to be cold I don't want to be shivering when I'm standing at, I do it especially for like training runs. And I'll put on too many layers, and then a mile in, I'm just shedding them and peeling them off. So I'll just have to look. Like that'll be like what I start in will be a game day decision. It'll just depend on if it's in the 20s or if it's in the 30s. If it's in the 30s, I'll probably just start in a long sleeve. If it's in the 20s, I might start in a jacket, and then that way I can tuck it in somewhere. But yeah, I mean, when I ran Watchtaw or Switchbacks, it was like 25 degrees that day. It sleeted on us most of the time. And I did run in my pants. If my quad, if my legs get too cold, I mean, you just can't move. So usually I'll just run in pants, but I don't have a layer under them. And then I'll just do a moisture wicking, like my exoskin shirt as a base layer, because it truly does like wick away the moisture. You really don't notice it. And then just a long sleeve over that.
Do you feel differently in colder weather?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can eat more solid foods. I can eat more solid foods in cold weather than I can in hot weather. Like, I guess maybe I do just run hot. The hotter I get, the more trouble I have stomaching food. So I'll do more solid foods. And especially early on, I've been focusing on doing more solid foods, even in my training runs, just to try to prep the stomach to be ready to take in, the solids and stuff. And then, once I get maybe to 45 or 50 miles, I'll probably just switch to tailwind only. I'll definitely do tailwind rebuild shakes when I see my crew. That's just an easy 200 calories to get down. That doesn't upset stomachs or anything like that. So,
and it's also good hot.
Yes.
So it's like a nice soothing cup of hot cocoa. So
yeah. And yes, and I've got my actually have my thermos out, so I'm probably going to do that too. Depending on how cold it is. Like if it's in the 40s, like I'll probably be wearing a short sleeve. Yeah.
Well, I think you'll be moving pretty fast. I love it. So relatively.
We'll see.
Yeah. It's not 16 hours. That's not the goal. That's not what I put on the pace chart.
Well, I'm like, me, I'm always like, it's like if you set your standards to a certain standard, you won't be disappointed, and you'll just be excited if things go better.
Yeah, I'll jump back to Elaine for this. Just talking about goal setting. You're you're one of those athletes that tell me what my goal is for this race. People that know me know that I love doing aid station charts and trying to project finish times. And it's mostly just for the it's not for the you need to run this pace for this loop. It's just so you can plan, what what are you going to need in loop 3, because you're going to come by it blah 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 time, you need to change clothes, things like that, and help plan your nutrition because you need to know how long you're going to be out there. But you're very specific early on, like what do you think I can run here, and then you would try to go out and knock it out. So tell us about that part for your racing and your goal setting.
For this race in general, or just
for all your races, you always wanted a goal time.
You said what would make a successful race.
Yeah.
Number 1, have fun. Number 2, don't fall. Number 3, hit the goal that my coach gave me. There's a reason why I am with you, and I am using your expertise so that I can hit this goal, because I think sometimes our coaches believe we can do things that we can't do. You see the potential that I don't think I see in myself. And so I just need to, it's one of the things I've learned in this whole process is last 6 months, is to believe in the process and the training that you're doing, because it's working. And so if you say that you think that I can hit a 3:15 25K at Paris Pair, I'm going to hit that thing, and I'm going to try my hardest to get there. And then what does that mean for me inside my head and my heart to get to that? I'm a goal person. I like that line. I like to know what I'm going for, and I'm going to try to hit it as best I can. And it's just something that I like doing. I mean, I'm gonna lean on your experience, and I'm gonna lean on my Pacers experience, and I'm gonna lean on the people that I run with every week experience. I like to just put myself aside, and I'm just gonna soak in as much knowledge as I can during this process.
Okay. So we only have a couple minutes left because we're still on free version of Zoom. So I do want to talk about what you have next. Just so your big goal for the fall of this year. So let's hear it.
Well, I signed up for Dino Valley 100K. I love Dino Valley so much. I had a lot of fun at it, so I decided to sign up for the 100K. And then I had nothing else planned between now and then, and so I had some race credits with a trot, so I decided to sign up for. And I wanted to do Sasquatch Shuffle. I wanted to do that last year. I didn't get a chance to do that, and so I signed up for. And this goes back to what you were saying, Jen, about you don't have to do the biggest race, the highest race. Yes, I could probably go and do the bigger race, but talk to Greg about it. And I think we're doing the 30K at Sasquatch. And then we talked about a race that would kind of be more comparable to Dino Valley, and we signed up for Coyote Run. And we signed up for the 25K so that I could work on my vert, I could work on the heels, and I could work on, just putting my core to work and getting ready for those 2 races in between.
That's what tune-up races are for.
Exactly.
Specificity.
Oh, cool. Okay, so it looks like we have less than a minute left. I'll let Jen do any kind of finishing thoughts, but I do appreciate you coming on. It was amazing to be, to see your race in person and be a part of your journey and your training this past year, because you've been killing it. So, and it's also been fun to see you grow as an athlete.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate both of y'all's help.
Yeah, right. I think I'm just really impressed. Elaine's very well-rounded, very grounded. I enjoy the way that you've described, your approach, and realizing that this is a process and that you don't have to accomplish everything at once.